Dears, today we are going to start with another poetry named Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda. Now before we start the poetry, let's start with the introduction of the poet. Pablo Neruda from Chile. He has written many poems. His poems are well understood because he usually writes in simple English, and that makes his poetry beautiful. Pablo Neruda won Nobel Prize in the year 1971, and this particular poem, Keeping Quiet, is about introspecting ourselves and to examine what is our activity and the way we are living and what need to be improved. And that is what the poet has written the poem. He has asked people to develop mutual understanding between themselves, to develop brotherhood. Now let me start the explanation of the particular poem, Keeping Quiet. Keeping Quiet, the title. What does it suggest? What does it mean? What we understand by reading the particular title, Keeping Quiet? Keeping quiet, to remain quiet, to remain silent. That is, we usually understand, but it is more than that. It is more than keeping silence, but to introspect ourselves, to understand ourselves better. As per Pablo Neruda, the human have less understanding of themselves. Now let's start the particular poem. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. As from the very first line of the poem, Pablo Neruda has urged to count up to 12. Now the question arises, why the poet has taken the particular number 12? As per Pablo Neruda, the number 12 rules our life. Now how? There are 12 months in a year. There are 12 zodiac signs. There are 12 numbers in clock. And that rules our life. So the poet has taken number 12. He asked us to count up to 12, and he is very sure that when we have counted up to 12, we will able to keep ourselves calm and we would introspect. We will examine ourselves. We will examine our activity. So now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. For once on the face of earth, let's not speak in any language. Now, in the next stanza, for once on the face of earth, now for once on the sake of Mother Earth, let's not speak in any language. Not to speak in any language. Why? The poet Pablo Neruda has asked, has requested not to speak in any languages. Why? Because as per Pablo Neruda, it is the language which creates barrier between us. It creates barrier between human to human. It divides people. So he has urged not to speak in any language. If we would not speak in any language, then only you can unite yourself. Then we all can unite ourselves. We can develop brotherhood among ourselves. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. Now the poet has again urged not to move our arms. Arms, why not to move our arms? Here arms has two meanings. One is our hands, our arms, and another the word arms stated weapons. So in that manner the poet has asked to keep still, not to move our arms, not to use the weapons, and improve brotherhood, develop brotherhood among ourselves. So let's stop for 1 second, for a few moments. Let's stop our all activity. Let's stop our arms. Let's stop the weapon. But let's develop brotherhood. How? By remaining silent. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. Now, it would be an exotic moment. What do you mean by exotic moment? Exotic means unusual, rare moment. It would be a rare moment, unusual moment. What? When we would not do anything. We would gather at a particular place to introspect ourselves, to develop brotherhood among ourselves. And that moment would be an exotic moment, great moment, unusual and rare moment. Without rush, there would be no rushing. As the humans are always rushing, the humans are always busy achieving their goals, achieving their day-to-day life needs. So for one moment, stop all the activity. Do not rush. Without rush, without engines. Engines represents the activity. So stop all the activities. Without rush, without engines, we would all be together. And if we stop all the activity for a moment, we would not rush, then at a particular place, if we gather ourselves, it would be all be together. We would all be together. We will gather at a particular place. We would be together at a particular place in a sudden strangeness. And this would be a strange moment that never seen, because in our day-to-day life we are busy in such a way that we don't have time for our relatives, we don't have time for ourselves even. So when we stop all the activity, we gather at a particular place, and that would be a great moment, that would be a strange thing that never have seen. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. Now, fishermen represent killer, destroyer, oppressor, who oppress others for their selfish needs. Now, when the fishermen would introspect themselves, then they would come to know that whatever they were doing was really wrong. He was killing, or they were killing, innocent creatures. And that time he would stop killing whales. And the man gathering salt, the man who is gathering salt, was not harming others but harming himself. And that time, after introspecting, he would understand that he was harming himself. He would stop harming himself. And the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands, and he would look at his hurt hands and stop that activity, stop harming himself. Those who prepare green wars with gas, wars with fire. Now those, the human who indulge themselves in destroying the nature. Now green wars, destroying the nature or destroying natural resources. And wars with gas, explosive devices used as weapon. Now wars with fire, bombs and all. In that manner they are busy destroying their mother nature, destroying their own brother's land. Those who prepare green wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors. When there would be no survivor left on the earth, then they would show their victory on whom? Would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shed doing nothing. And when, after introspecting, when they would come to know that whatever they were doing was totally wrong, destroying their own brother's land, and there would be no survival left on the earth in that manner. So when they would understand their activity, what they would do? They would put on clean clothes. Clean cloth represents clean heart. So they would come up with clean heart and walk about with their brothers in the shed doing nothing. And they would come forward, walk hand in hand with their brothers doing nothing, so that they can gather at a particular place, introspect themselves well for the further development of the human or their own brothers and sisters. They would develop brotherhood among themselves. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. As we all know, Pablo Neruda has urged us to keep still, not to do any activity, not to speak in any language, and gathered at a particular place doing nothing. And when he speaks about that, and what he wants should not be confused with total inactivity, and he has asked for a moment to stop all the activity, not to speak in any language, gather at a particular place, so that we can introspect ourselves better, and we will come with clean heart and do for the betterment of ourselves and for our brothers and sisters. And that should not be confused by total inactivity. If we stop all the activity for a long time, then probably we would not survive. So that should not be confused with total inactivity for long. Only stop for a while. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. Life is what it is about. We make ourselves busy for our day-to-day life needs, and that should be on, and that is life about. For our survival, we have to work, but we have to find certain time for introspecting ourselves. In that manner, that should not be confused, but it should be understood in that manner, to find it out time for introspecting ourselves, and the next moment we start working for our day-to-day life. So life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. When there would be no activity, there would be total inactivity, doing nothing, then there would be death. There would be number of death. So that should not be confused and should not be the cause of death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So if we are not single-minded, about keeping our life moving, our life should move on. But for a particular time, for certain time, we have to stop our all activity to introspect ourselves. And for once could do nothing, for a moment, doing nothing would help we human. So, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence, perhaps that huge silence when we gathered at a particular place doing nothing, no talking, nothing in any language, not to talk in any language, that huge silence, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness, that huge silence can destroy the sadness in our life. And what is the sadness in our life? Of never understanding ourselves. We humans are busy in such a way that we don't have time to understand ourselves, and that is the greatest sadness in our life. So interrupt this sadness. Which one? Interrupt that sadness just by keeping quiet and introspecting ourselves. That would interrupt the sadness. So a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. And another sadness is the sadness of death, the fear of death. That is the great sadness in our life. So two sadness the poet has stated here. One is never understanding ourselves and another is fear of death. So when we stop talking, we would gather at a particular place to introspect ourselves. That particular silence would interrupt all the sadness in our life. It would clear all the sadness in our life. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now, the poet also stated that we should learn from earth. At a particular place, the earth seems dead. When it is winter season, it looks freeze. It looks freezed, looks inactive. But when the season changes, new season comes. Now once again it looks alive. So the poet has asked to learn from Mother Earth. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. Now the poet is very sure that we understand what we need to do, what we have to develop. We have to stop talking in any language, gather at a particular place, introspect ourselves, come forward with clean heart and develop brotherhood among ourselves. Now the poet is very sure that we understood and doing what need to be done, and now it is his turn to count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. So now he stated that it is his turn to go and count up to 12 and introspect himself. And you humans, keep doing, keep introspecting yourself for the betterment of yourself, a betterment of your brothers and sisters, to develop brotherhood among ourselves. That is the message of poet Pablo Neruda. Thank you.